this message is just for you. You are good enough. This is the episode for you. If you are finding that doing or even just thinking about your language learning activities is stressing you out, then I made this video just for you. So we all know that language learning can come with some pretty daunting quests attached to it. It can feel like everything you want and everything that you need to do is way over in the distance on the other side of this huge canyon, and quite rightly, you're scared to jump. You're scared of failing, you're scared of embarrassment, or you're scared because even for native speaker you, this is way out of your comfort zone. And I am very much of the opinion that if a task feels too big, then it probably is. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean you need to shut your eyes and block your ears and force yourself to leap. It means you need to put more steps in to bridge the gap. In the teaching world, we call it scaffolding, but all it means is putting small stepping stones in between the bigger ones so that you never have to overstretch. You're aiming for exactly the same place, but you're giving yourself more support to get there. So in this video today, I wanted to give you 3 examples of what that might look like, depending on the giant leap that you're trying to make. So the first one is speaking. On the other side of the speaking ravine, speaking looks like having this animated conversation with someone that you've literally just met, reminiscing, debating, feeling confident and charismatic in your new language. Over that ravine, talking in your new language is quite a lot like talking in your native language. And that is a big leap. It's too big, really, and trying to jump over in one fell swoop is likely to leave us feeling like we're not good enough, we're behind, we're embarrassed, we didn't enjoy the conversation, and probably like it's also never going to happen. So we have to give ourselves permission to make that jump easier and gradually build up the difficulty. And so that might look like finding people online first, even if you're living in the country, because then you can enjoy some anonymity and be less afraid of making mistakes. It might look like playing word games and testing each other on vocabulary first, so that you can communicate with short words and phrases without needing to have a full-blown conversation. It might look like taking a walk together or going somewhere together, so you can just sort of look at the things around you and point and comment and enjoy spending time together without needing to have this face-to-face intense conversation in which you have to come up with conversation ideas and put lots of long sentences with nuanced opinions together. And it could look like agreeing the speaking topic in advance and having a question list ready a day before, a few days before, so that you can come to the conversation with a good idea of what's going to happen. And then there are fewer surprises and you can't get so lost. And if you would like a more in-depth discussion on how to make speaking in general less scary in your language, I have another video that you might enjoy, which I will link just about now, and I'll attach it to this video. The second massive leap you might be trying to make is reading, and this one also applies to listening. Over the reading ravine, you're halfway through a novel by now. But on this side of the ravine, you're not there yet, and a lot of people's first instincts are to go to children's books in the language. But actually, a lot of the time, that isn't especially helpful. Because when you think about what we read with children, the vocabulary that you'll find with children's books is really different from textbooks and typical adult conversation topics. And that brings a whole set of problems of its own. So depending on the book, that might not actually be the stepping stone that you're looking for. Better stepping stones could look like reading short messages, blog posts, or news stories about topics that you have recently studied. It's still real language, and if it's a forum, you can still see real life interactions taking place, but people are more likely to write closer to how they talk. It could also look like finding a short story, maybe even just a couple of pages long, and reading for the gist, for the overall message, rather than trying to understand every word. And it could be setting yourself a kind of fact-finding mission in the text, rather than setting yourself the goal of just understanding the whole thing. So instead of trying to understand it, you're asking yourself questions just about the who, the where, the when, the what, and the why. Or you're taking out specific details about, for example, when it happened or what objects are mentioned in the text. Or if it's fiction, you might be reading the character description and then trying to draw the character as they're described. It could look like enjoying social media posts in the language because they tend to be super short. Or it might be finding passages of books that you already know, books that you've read several times over in your native language, and just playing around with it, getting curious about how it looks and sounds and feels in this new language. Do the characters feel the same? If they've got names of creatures, like if it's the Harry Potter series that you're reading, what are they called in this new language? And get the curiosity that way. And it could look like reading captions that are attached to images, either on things like comic books or the descriptions on clothing websites, travel sites, or food blogs. I always think images are so useful in language learning because they make sure that you can't get lost. If you have a picture, you know that you're definitely on the same page as the author, and the reassurance enough is gold dust. And the third great leap is writing. So over the writing ravine, you are churning out pages and pages of well thought out, eloquent prose that perfectly captures your inner world. But over this side, again, you are not there yet. You might lack the vocabulary that you want. There might be some topics or important grammar that you've not covered at all yet. And writing really tires you out. So bridging that gap might look like finding a topic and writing word lists rather than full sentences. Just throwing related words onto the page and seeing what happened. When I created the How to Be Me series of language journals, this is exactly what I had in mind. I wanted a series of journals where people could just find a prompt and then have space to make word lists or word clouds to doodle and then caption it to stick in tickets or leaves or stickers and then write sentence fragments about where they came from. You do not need to be writing reams of text straight away. It's fine to use a mix of words and doodles for a while so that you can get into the habit of getting your thoughts onto paper in your new language. And using images to substitute is so much better in so many ways than substituting words in your native language, because it still kind of then encourages that dependence and that reverting to your native language. It might be taking one sentence structure that you've learned and writing as many sentences as you can with it. The wilder the better, and just making yourself laugh with it. So the point that I wanted to make today is that when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or really uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that you can't do the thing. It doesn't even mean that you're not ready. It might just be that you're trying to do the whole leap at once, and with a few tweaks, you can bridge that gap and you can make this so much easier on yourself. And if you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to share about how you scaffold the things that you find daunting, I would love if you could tell me about them by leaving a comment below. And while you're there, come and say hi and tell me what language you're studying, because I would love to meet you. Be kind to yourself today, language learners, and I will see you tomorrow.